episode of The Talent Whisperer. It's your host, Chipo Chedo. And take two. We tried this last week. We tried this last week, but it wasn't meant to be. And we are finally doing it today. So today, my guest is none other than Mulenga Udie Soko. Did I Udie right? Udie.
Yes.
Oh, nice. That sounds a lot more exotic. Mulenga Udie Soko. Mulenga is a Zambian African entrepreneur, as you described yourself. She's an athlete, and she's also a sustainable interior architectural designer. I love that. Let's do it again. Sustainable interior architectural designer and a content creator. But she says her most important role is that of being a mom to the animated 5-year-old Aaliyah.
She's actually turning 7 this year.
It was you see, this is the thing when we get the content off the website.
I know.
So Aaliyah is now 7.
She's turning 7 in October.
Amazing. And is Aaliyah named after
Ali? Yes.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I thought, should we check the meanings? Of the name. Spelling. It's maybe deeper than I thought.
No, but it is deeper.
It is deeper, yes. Right? Yeah, yes. I love it. Okay, I need to start thinking about what to name the future children's. Yeah, because they can be named anything now. If Aaliyah can pass the African family test, then I'm hopeful. Anyway, let me continue. Mulenga is the founder of Saucy Mukosa. Originally started as a passion project, and the Saucy, why is my writing weird? Are we putting that in the video, Bill? Her brand, Saucy, started with a clear vision to use her love for sustainable design, food, and community to collaboratively create functional pieces. And I love this, sinfully delicious treats for the adventurous souls. I am an adventurous soul that share her values on conscious living and having a positive impact. I love this. Did you just... Did you just come up with this vision, or did it come how did you put this together? Because it doesn't feel like the cliche vision we all come up with for our companies. It just feels so you.
I kind of feel like the origin might sound kind of cliche, but maybe to add some context to it, my mother is a career social worker. And as a child, she was always gone. And I didn't understand why she was gone. So 7 years ago, we had a conversation. This was after some girls' trip. We sat down, had some wine and a conversation.
And those
My mom loves wine, by the way.
Hi, Mom.
Hey. So we had this conversation, and I was just trying to understand why. Because for the longest time, I didn't get it. It's like you had time for everyone else. And I literally mean every child, every vulnerable woman, every family that needed you, you were there. What happened, Yeah. So when she sat me down, she broke down. There was some teary moments. She broke it down very easily for me. She said, Mulenga, you always have me. Even when I'm gone, I will always be your mother. And who I am as a person will never change. And what I feel for you will never change. But still, I mean, that being said, still,
I wanted attention.
Can you elaborate? Yeah. Okay, at least. So then she said, my need to help children or families who are vulnerable stemmed from... Wardrobe malfunction.
No, don't worry. Are we trying to put it back, or are we...
not for now, no.
Are we going with one earring?
We're going with the one. So her need to be there for the vulnerable community stemmed from a very, very early childhood. She came from a family of 10. It was 10 siblings. It was a big home. So they were always used to taking care of a large grouping of people. But with her, she always found that in as much as there was a large grouping of people, she needed to find her place in the family. And one way she did that was cooking and just being the glue that brought the family together. And she extended that into her community. So in her letting me know that she would always love me, she'd always
Yeah.
be my mother, even though at the time I felt like, but still, woman, this still doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But after I gave birth,
Mm-hmm.
it clicked. It clicked. And by the way, when we had this conversation, I was actually 6.5 months pregnant, because I really wanted to understand her why, and I was getting into this next chapter of my life.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go in blindsided, just not knowing what to expect. So we did have a heart to heart, and from then Saucy Mukosa was born, but so was my daughter. So I have two babies.
Oh wow.
Yes.
But I think I find those conversations, like when we grow up and start to get to know our parents as humans, I think we shouldn't shy away from asking and getting to know their why. They can be very healing conversations, I think. So good for you for having
It was
tough
extremely
conversations.
healing,
Yeah.
because I think as a child, at some point I was very, very quiet, because I was so observant of my environment. I was very aware of my environment. So I ended up being very, very quiet. And in those moments, I would always think, Chileshe, why aren't you here? Chileshe is my mom's name. Chileshe, but Chileshe, why aren't you here?
Yeah.
And then in that moment, and this is me crying with snot coming out, I'm like, okay, I understand.
I get it.
I get it.
Yeah.
And from there, it's like, okay, what do I want to do to continue her legacy?
Yeah.
What can I do to give back in the same manner, in the same way that my mother has given her life, dedicated her life to helping the vulnerable?
Yeah.
I should mention that she was a civil servant.
Yeah.
And her last project, or her last assignment, was to pioneer the ending child marriage program.
Oh,
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is extremely
And that was
huge.
also really impactful work.
Yes, it was. So just having moments where she would come home and have these very, very intimate stories of the families that she'd helped, and just some of the abusive environments that some of these kids had survived from. It was really touching for me. So I wanted to see how I can not veer off of what I'm naturally good at, but then fuse that with what my mother had taught me throughout my life unconsciously. Because some of the things that, her not being around in certain times of my life did actually teach me to be independent in certain ways, and not too dependent on, let's say, not necessarily my parents per se, but just on people. That to have this drive to say, okay, you know what, you can do things on your own. You don't have to wait for somebody. It can be very comforting to have that. It can be very, and it is comforting, but it's also very challenging, and it, in a good way, it would allow you to dig deeper. So I'm grateful for that experience.
This goes nicely into the first question I always ask. I think you've already touched on what you were like as a kid, but now when you look back, right, because hindsight is always such a great teacher. I don't know why it always has to be hindsight. Some foresight would be nice,
That part.
Anyway, so when you look back, were the signs always there that you'd be doing exactly what you're doing right now?
Yes. The signs were there, but I was very stubborn. I was stubborn in my great thinking. I was going to be, at some point, I would have been a lawyer, which is the lawyer, doctor, or teacher, the main three.
Big
and then
three.
the big three. Then I switched. When I got into high school, I became obsessed with forensic pathology, and for a long time I was like, I'm just gonna sew up dead people.
Oh my God, me too.
Find out what's gonna happen. Really?
Is it because you watched CSI? It was because I watched CSI.
I watched every kind of CSI on the planet.
I thought I'd be a pathologist. Cool. Me. Anyway, continue.
The craziest. But I think one of the reasons why I was drawn to it was the attention to detail. I had always been that way as a kid. And I didn't understand why. Maybe they just make it look cool on TV, but in actuality, you are surrounded by corpses and you're trying to figure out what happened. But I like the mystery of it, and just the problem solving, so to speak. So I think that's what drew me to to that. But in terms of like knowing, yes, I did. There were signs. I think my most vivid memory of architecture, construction, and design. We lived in a house. This was like Liwala, I think. The neighbor was building, and I was just fascinated by concrete and block work. For whatever reason, I was always on that side. Like every day that we lived in that house and they were building, I was always there.
Your friends were playing white.
Yes, yes, I was
went
there.
To look at concrete,
and they would they would chase me, and I would always come home with like, like concrete in my fingers, and my feet would be covered, and mom is Mulenga. And I'm like, woman, just let me be. So from a very, very young age, I knew, but I didn't know.
You knew, but you didn't know.
Because I was stubborn. Because I was thinking, okay, being a lawyer sounds cool, but then forensic pathology sounds brainy. So I kind of thought, okay, maybe. Until finally in high school we had careers day, and someone came and talked about architecture, and I thought it sounded sexy.
It really does.
This is what we're gonna do.
Even the spelling is hard.
I know.
So
the craziest part is when people call me an architecture.
Like, that sounds like something Zambians would do.
No, it's very normal. At this point, I've just stopped getting like weird about it. I'm just like, no, okay, thank you, and I keep it moving.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Anyway, I love your Instagram page.
Thank you.
I love your Instagram page. I love your website. It just makes me want to grow up, become an adult, and have a nice house, and eat from nice things. I just feel
as you deserve.
Yeah, listen, as I deserve. Yes. Yeah, so it's very aspirational. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it so much. But then you started out as an architecture. So how did your career pivot? I know, like, you've kind of touched on, someone came, talked about being an architect, sounded sexy, and I guess there were all these things in your past that you might not even have been aware that at the time that they were attracting you to this thing, right? But then you pivot from being an architect to an interior designer, a furniture maker, you're making content. What led to that pivot in your career?
Again, I think just fast forward into just before the beginning of COVID, because it took me a minute to sort of come to terms with being a first-time mom, and just navigating like the first couple of years of motherhood, because I think we sort of fast forward and we never actually deal with that first couple of years. So again, my mother and I had a conversation.
I love it.
It's like, friend, you are your mom now, but life goes on. You're a woman first, and then motherhood comes second. And I kind of forgot that, because for the first few months she was latching, and that was it. That was my life revolved around this tiny human. And so I kind of forgot who I was. I really didn't socialize as much. Already, I'm an introvert in real life. So, like, just social...
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's taken me a while. Like, it's taken me a while. I'm very, very quiet, generally. Until you get to know me, and it's like, you can't...
Yeah, because I'm getting extrovert vibes. But okay, let's proceed. Let's proceed.
So we had another conversation, and she just said, you know what, you need to get back into the thick of things, and you need to find yourself again. Crazy thing is, the 2016, I resigned from my job. This was the architectural firm I had worked for for a couple of years. I resigned on a Friday, drove to a family health on Monday, and they tell me I'm 6.5 months pregnant.
6.5?
Yes, girl. Yes.
I got some questions.
I know you do.
But I don't know if we're going to get into that, because it feels like an episode on TLC.
No, it is. Literally, I lived that. And Andy, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so they tell me, well, there's a full-blown baby in there, and I'm like, wait, what?
What?
So now I'm confused.
Yeah.
Because 6.5 months prior,
Yeah.
I had done every test and I literally mean every test. The last one I did was an endoscopy, and that is very uncomfortable for anyone. Even if you even have to do it, it's very uncomfortable. So they didn't, she was just hiding somewhere in chilling. She's like,
always
no,
moving.
not yet. Then when I drove to Family Health, this lady, she puts this huge hearing thingy on my stomach, and she says, well, there's a baby in there. And I'm like, okay. What to do? Right? So
Yeah.
I called my mom.
Oh, is the baby coming now?
Yes. So she's like, Mulenga Nishi.
Yeah.
Bani. Just come to Family Health, guys. Yeah, this is not a phone call conversation.
Yeah.
Just come. So she drove, and she said, whatever it is, we'll deal. So she got there, and we sat in the car for 45 minutes, and I was just bawling like an idiot. And in that moment, she held me, and I feel like it felt like for the first time, the why, I got that's the moment it clicked for me. So fast forward now to 2019, just pre-COVID months.
Yeah.
Again, she's like, oh, Mulenga, we've moved past that. So now let's get into the thick of let's get back into working. So that's where we sort of not necessarily reinvent, but I kind of established what I really wanted to do for my community, and working with my local community to create spaces that just make you feel a way about living and life. We want people to feel inspired, but we also want people to feel like what we do at Saucy Mukosa is very attainable, regardless of what stage you're at in life. So that's kind of the story of how I ended up pivoting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why when you were leaving your architectural job on a Friday and then finding out you were almost having a baby on a Monday, why did you leave? And did you leave with the intention that you were going to do something else, or did you resign because you were going to go on and find another architectural gig?
Actually, I was transitioning to a new job. So I was going to get into a managerial project management position, and this company dipped. When I say dipped, I mean left the country and set up elsewhere. I didn't even.
They dipped, except
guys, they left.
It's not funny, but what?
You know what?
You're going through it.
Yes.
6.5 months pregnant. Company dipped. You were ghosted.
I was out. No, literally. I was ghosted.
Wow.
These people came back to me a year later, and I'm like, guys, I mean, you could have taken me with you.
Where you been?
Really? Yeah. So I was transitioning into a new job. Didn't happen. But one of the things that I remember that Monday after finding out, the next couple of days, on a Wednesday, I was going to sit for a 3-day architectural license exam.
Yeah.
That I was preparing for the whole month of June, because I found out in June, actually. The whole month of June I was preparing. So July was when we were getting into our exams and stuff. Yeah. So mom again is you have to write. You will never have time.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you're feeling, you have to do this. So I wrote the exam. I got my license. Yay.
And also shout out to Chileshe. I love it when moms just make things happen. Yeah.
No, but she really, really rallied for me, and I'm appreciative of that.
Amazing. Okay, so so in a weird way, it's fate or life just...
It's life.
Made you pivot.
Yeah. Life made me pivot, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. I don't know if I had a different experience if I would be doing what I'm doing now. Because
if those guys didn't dip, and then you'd have started that job, it would still be.
Because that whole conversation of you need to get back out there and have get back into work, it was coming from not having a job. I was made with the buy P. It was oh boy, you are jobless. I had there was a plan,
Yeah, yeah.
I run through my savings, obviously. That went out the window. And then it was like, what do I do with myself? So there was a lot of rebuilding. And I literally mean rebuilding because just physically, my spine had shifted. So I had to do a lot of physical training to get back into like not necessarily shape one, but also just get back into normalcy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, it's a good story,
I know.
and
It's a lot.
I love it. I love it though, because I think it's it's testament to you just ending up where you're supposed to end up. At the time, I'm sure I didn't feel like that, girl. At the time, it didn't feel like that, but then you end up exactly where you're supposed to end up, and I think those are some of the best stories, right? Because we can. They say we make plans and God laughs.
Oh, he laughed.
Yeah, yeah.
He laughed. He had
Yeah.
the ball.
Anyway, so let's move on because some of the careers I find most fascinating are careers that have a bit of a balance on left left brain and right brain, right? Where like for you are coming from a technical background, you're an architect, and now you've entered this creative space, and those are the things that I feel like, I'm trying to promote this thing where I feel like we're not like human beings are not just one thing. Like we're a lot
we're
of things.
multifaceted.
We're multifaceted, exactly. So for you, what is your creative flow, or what are some of your creative practices? Where do you find the balance between designing, which is like a hard skill, and then at the same time letting like your creative process flow in and create the beautiful things that you do?
I think my brain functions in an organic state. I like things very, very, very natural, as natural as possible. So getting into that, like striking a balance, I work best at night. I could pull an all-nighter from midnight to 6 and have the idea by morning, and it's sorted, and we're good to go. But I was wired that way because of school, because
Yeah.
of university. We didn't necessarily have time to function any other time of the
Yeah.
day except at night. And I think it's generally like that for
It's when you
most
study.
people. That's
What's
when
it
we
called?
study.
Ukuzurowa. What?
Kuziroa. But before Kuziroa was drawing. So we're always sketching, we're always figuring out why this line doesn't meet the next one, or why one particular angle won't work. And so for me, the balance comes in where I try and keep everything very organic. So if that means my workspace is very organic, I don't really like linear flow of things, because I just feel like my brain is not wired that way.
Linear flow. Please explain to the layman.
Okay, so the linear flow would be like your rectangle, your
Okay.
literal square.
Okay.
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 Everything is
So
very
something
straight.
too fine and like.
Yes, they look beautiful,
Yeah.
and there's a time and place for that. But I feel like the creative, the crazy creative, because there's different kinds of creative people. But the me creative is very organic, and I love to draw inspiration from nature. And
So you like that flow?
I like that flow. It feels very. I like the structure of it, and it feels like if you were to remove one element, it doesn't necessarily feel off in a way. Linear creativity tends to feel kind of off when you take one thing out. There's very specific principles.
It easily falls.
Yes, it's like, guys, something is missing here. But with an organic flow, you sort of have the freedom to do it as you please.
I get that. It's like how, we were trying to put up a picture yesterday, and because of the lines, I guess it had to be in a particular place.
Yeah.
But then that made something else at the bottom look off. The minute it was looking, linear, something else. Yeah, I think I just got that.
But you understand
Yeah,
that.
I just got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. It's I like the freedom that that an organic flow allows me to have. But there are moments where I have to be very, very strict with lines, and that's fine. I can do that. But I shine best with an organic.
So I guess that's where like the fact that you can even understand these things as concepts is, I think is where, is probably like one of your superpowers in a business like yours, because the rest of us are thinking like, oh, this just looks really nice. This just is making sense, and we don't get that behind it is a bit of science and a bit of flow.
There's a lot of science.
Yeah.
There's a lot of science. Architecture and just even interior design involves a lot of math. There's a lot of math involved. You really have to understand your distances, your angles. There's a lot of math.
Yeah.
And much like photography, I know it has a lot to do with light. So same thing with interior design, same thing with architecture. We play a lot with angles and light.
Yeah.
And just trying to understand composition. To see, okay, if I place an object here, does it make sense for the human eye? Because naturally, what is the human eye accustomed to? So in your literal sense, if I'm looking at the camera, my viewpoint is that way and I can see that there. But what else surrounds it that makes a photo, for instance, composed? That makes it, and by composed, I just mean balanced.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Well, everything you said just flew past my head, but also made a lot of sense.
It's kind of like last week when I was here.
Yeah.
He was asking you to move around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's probably a light issue is why he was doing it, but it's the balance of the light that he wants you are the, sorry to say, but you are the object in the photo. So he wants you to illuminate it enough to be very, very, to provide clarity, to create clarity in the image, but then also because you are the focus, all of your elements, all of your features need to show. So
my essence, Bill. I'm always telling you didn't capture my essence.
No, essentially that's what it is, and that's basically, I think, what one of the things I love about design and the art of design is it's so related. Anything and everything that I've learned in the architectural realm, I can apply anywhere in my life. Because when we talk about balance, when we talk about symmetry, we talk about composition, we talk about aesthetics. It trickles down to even just fashion. It's composition, it's color, it's balance, it's
all put together. It's
exactly
everything, like, yeah.
And if you're going to say symmetry, so what's the right word to use in terms of fashion? In terms of it, like not necessarily proportions, but does a particular type of clothing fit or suit your body type? So that in architectural sense would be symmetry.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So
you kind of still see
the concepts are very, very,
they're very applicable in everything.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily feel like I kind of pivoted. I feel like I sort of brought everything with me into it. It's just a different clientele, or maybe the same clientele, but they are requesting a different product.
Yeah.
Or they're requiring a different service, but it's the same.
I get
it's
that.
It's the same kind of principle.
It's like an interpretation of, you've interpreted it how you see it, and I think that should be the whole point, right? We all can't be the same type of architect, or we all can't be the same type of HR professional.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of room and there's a lot of need in the world to start to interpret things according to how you were made and according to your gifts and talents, right? Because I think that's what creates not just a fulfilling and meaningful career, but I think it also creates impact.
We know it does. Yeah. It does. Because I feel like if you do work that you love, yes, but work that challenges you enough to say, I did that.
Yeah.
Then everything you do, you create impact, no matter how small it is. It may be just, getting up and you have that client and said, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I just walked in and dead, I die, you have those moments.
I love that those are full sentences these days. I die.
Yes, dead, and that's it. And then you have those moments where you're not so great, and the client just says, I feel like I wasted my time. Can I get a refund? There's moments like that. And you're like, refund, friend.
That money spent.
That does, but I've come to realize that it's those types of clients that I find I learn the most from. It's the most difficult ones.
Yeah.
The most difficult conversations or relationships. Then you have a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And I'm glad like during my time as a sustainable interior designer and product designer, I have had a lot of challenging clients. But I don't feel like they're different from my architectural days, because it's the same client requiring a different service. It's just that they have a very, think of architecture as a whole, and interiors as a part
of it. Yeah. I get that.
So and with interiors or furniture, it's very detailed and it's very personal. And if it doesn't scream someone's personality, doesn't say this is who that person is, they will let you know. They are not afraid.
I actually like difficult clients.
They're
The
good.
reason I like them is I feel like they know what they want.
Right?
Yeah. It's easier to work with someone who knows what they want versus someone who's still figuring it out. So with the ones that know what they want, they'll give you feedback. You get to that point, and you learn something. But the ones that don't know what they want, you can go around in circles for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that's harder.
They waste your time.
Yes.
Energy.
Yes.
And a whole bunch more.
Oh, man. But no, let's talk about sustainable living, because I feel like it's like, I know what it is as a concept, but it also just feels sometimes like the new thing, like the new... So what is sustainable living, sustainable furniture, and why is it important to you? And also, why should it be important to me as well, to all of us?
Well, in the literal sense, it's living within your means. Maybe the word sustainable is such a big word, or maybe it's looked at as living green.
That's what I think sometimes. I'm like, but we use the wood from the tree we grew ourselves. I don't know. It just sounds like something green and something responsible, and like it sounds like something I should be doing if I'm an adult, but I'm not doing it. That's what it sounds like.
Well, I feel in a way we all should be living sustainably, but in a literal sense, it just means you live within your means. Because sometimes you want to create this facade that you can do and be and live a certain way, but you don't have the resources to back that.
Yeah.
And so you're always having to tap into someone else's resources, or having to buy something else to satisfy or gratify some feeling you think you need. So it's just going back to our roots, really. And in a literal sense, what are our roots? It's drawing from what we already have. So if it means say you have containers, and this I know is gonna sound really, really bad, because there's some people that would just never.
Yeah.
But if you have, a lot of us have, buttered containers in the house that you've never done anything with, but there's piles and piles of them in the kitchen
and
somewhere.
wine bottles.
Yes, that just do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? But you'll go out and buy another container of butter, because generally our society, our economy doesn't have sustainable stores that you can go and just refill. And I wish that existed, but currently it doesn't. I mean, there's systems that we can implement as a country to do that, but generally that doesn't exist. But at a household level, I feel like it starts with the very, very little things. So the most basic one would be recycling water. the bulk of us would just open a tap and just let it run.
Yes.
And that's about it. You wash your hands and that's
Yeah.
it. But there's ways of recycling that water and channeling it into your garden. If you don't own a garden, you can at least channel it into some kind of system and reuse it for your lavatory, your bathroom, aka toilets. You know, there's ways of doing that. And then there's people that I feel like will always buy the latest thing.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They nothing wrong with the old one, but they'll just that drawn, and new things are very shiny.
They are.
They're extremely shiny, and that exactly. And I think the part of that a part of us that draws us to that is wanting to fit in or to fit a certain narrative. But do you really need it? Sustainability is about necessities, about understanding what your environment has that can serve you, and most likely what you have within your reach will serve you just fine.
Yeah.
It'll save you money, it'll save you time, it'll save you having to create this facade. Now granted, there's people with resources.
Yeah.
Well and good, you have those resources, but how are you really using the resources that can ensure that your great grandkids can actually draw from that? I think most of us, especially in this country, we're very short-sighted. There's nothing long-term. It's like now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, if
all
Apple
of us are trying to gratify something now. Yeah.
If Apple comes out with a phone later, I just bought iPhone, the 14 Pro yesterday. I am whatever it is I have to do.
How can I not have the latest one?
I have to get the 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you have to? What is wrong with the old one? Nothing. But it's, if I don't have it, then I'm not. But in a literal sense, how sustainable is that? Say, when you retire, will all of that matter? I know it seems kind of like, are you serious? Like, really? But really,
I think they're very good questions. I think those are really good questions, and it's about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even for me, that's definitely something that in some areas I do well, in some areas I don't. In some areas I'm like, can you have enough shoes? No, not really. So I get that, and I think it's a great way of looking at sustainability, because once again, like we were talking about earlier, it's not just about furniture. I guess at the end of the day, it's about a lifestyle, right? It's about putting this concept in all areas of your life and asking yourself questions like, do I really need that? Or what can I do? And we're all not going to be perfect, because I think we all have vices, right?
No, we do.
But it's also consciously where you're able to practice sustainability. I think you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's trust and believe. I always have to have that conversation with myself, because there's some moments I walk into a shop and I just want.
Yeah.
It's really a want. It's not a need. I mean, I could live without it, but I'm like, no.
Always wanting.
We want this. Do you realize what's going to happen? You're going to get happy hormones, but it's very short term.
Yeah.
It's very short lived, and then there's nothing to gain from it.
Yeah. So, what would you say for someone who I think is, as much as what you've done is, people have always kind of done the business you're doing, where they're creating different things, and you work with a lot of local artisans, right? So they've done it in their own way. Yeah. But when you think about the business you've created, right, and the model you have where you work with like a lot of local artisans, you're trying to also make some products that are affordable, and what would you say has been your hardest lesson building this business and running this business till today?
I think in the beginning, there's a couple of real tough ones.
Yeah.
But what comes to mind off the top of my head is thinking I could manage everything on my own. And this is like managing relationships, whether it is the artisanal team or my internal team, or just managing my own time.
Yeah.
Because you wear running a business, you wear several hats
Oh,
throughout
the
the day.
hats. Yeah.
One time you're the accountant, the next you're this, and even when you have those systems in place, you're still, because you're the creator founder at a managerial level, you still have to go through all of these departments to just ensure that everything is running smoothly. So in the beginning, I had the clever thought that I could manage everything, and things fall through the cracks, and it shows. The moment it starts showing is when you had a meeting somewhere, or you were supposed to send an invoice and you didn't do it, and then you're wondering why money hasn't flowed through, and you're like, wait a minute, did I do what I was meant to do? And then you realize you really can't do this, and then you can't always be there. Right? Because there's some moments when, let's say I'm out of town or out of the country for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And a client walks in and they're looking for certain things, and they want to place an order.
Yeah. What happens?
Friend. Can we reschedule? But then that client doesn't live here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to make some very tough choices in the beginning, and just in the middle. Let's not pretend. In the middle, I made some tough choices just to help me navigate through everything. But also the other thing, one of the biggest lessons I've come to learn is that there are a lot of areas I still have to learn. I'm not gonna be great at everything.
Yep.
And it's okay to not be great. It is okay. Like, just understand that you are not gifted in every area.
Yeah, build how you're built.
Yes.
Yeah.
The things where you shine, the things where you excel at. And then there's areas where you're like, it's ABC for, and it's okay to go through that. In the beginning, I think it was an ego issue, where you'd have conversations with people and they'll ask you like standard questions, and then you get defensive because you don't know something. And then you're thinking, well, this person is just difficult. No, learn, read something, go through, right? And it took me a while to come to terms with, I'm not going to know everything or be gifted at everything, and that's okay. This is where you need to bring people that are stronger in these areas, bring them in and have them take that load off you. Because one of the reasons why things start to fall through the cracks is because you're trying to manage everything, and you can't. You really can't.
No, you can't. And I think that's a powerful lesson, because you really can't do everything, especially at a certain point in the business. So yeah, those are some really good lessons. Those are some really good lessons. Oh, let's hear it.
I need to add this one.
Yeah.
No one's coming. Understand.
That's a life lesson.
Friend, nobody is coming.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't wake up, I feel like, the being salaried, and I say this coming from, that experience in life.
Having had both.
You have the comfort of that monthly income coming in, and it's great. When you're an entrepreneur and you're running, you have to make money.
Yeah.
You have to physically get up at if you affirmations, if you're jumping and like, hey, do what you need to do to get yourself
get
it
together,
because that money is not going to make it so far.
Yeah.
Right? And it does, but there's certain things that you need to do behind the scenes.
Eventually
it starts to work itself out.
Yeah.
And you have those moments where it's almost miraculous that you have one of those they don't know you, they just show up, and it's like, hey,
if this person knew what they have done today.
So you have moments like that, but no one is coming.
Yeah.
You like it or not.
But apart from the entrepreneurial side, I think it's a life thing.
No, it is.
Like, at some point, all of us have that realization at a different point. Some never get it, but at some point you're like,
no one is coming.
Yeah, like, this is it. It's me.
Yeah.
Like, it's me. Jesus is not coming down.
No.
Like, right now to help. It's me. So I think that more for entrepreneurs. You're very right. And I wanted to say, actually, when you were talking about the pressure to do everything, I think it's also what we've been sold.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
for sure.
you know, what we've been sold on the gram, on YouTube, on
My
podcasts,
that bad.
is that, you know, people come with the stories of like they did everything, you know, and it makes you feel like you're lacking something, and you start to beat yourself up about the things that you're not good at, when in truth, you know, you'll be good in one area and you can be excellent in one area, and they say double down on your strengths.
Yeah.
And then hire for your weaknesses, or find partners for your weaknesses. And that's, I think, is a powerful lesson that shouldn't take you too long.
It is.
Because you are not going to be good at everything.
No, you're not.
You know.
And just accept.
And just accept.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
the acceptance that actually drags you backwards.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting in your own way because you're not ready to accept that you are not going to be great at everything.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move. So when you sit down and sum up all these parts of you, all these like amazing parts of you, what would you say are your gifts and your talents?
Gifts and talents, I can package the heck out of anything. That I could wake up and just, it doesn't even
Packaging.
matter what it is. It's just packaging in general. And I say packaging because when it comes from a design standpoint, you are definitely packaging an experience. Yeah, regardless of whether it's a space, it's a product, it's packaging. At the end of the day, it's what people look at in a tangible sense. So I can package the heck out of anything. Really, I can. That is one thing.
That's a powerful gift.
No, that is really powerful.
But also it's true, because I think what you've done with your brand, how it's packaged, is,
thank you very much.
It's very nice. I love
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
But it took me a while though to get loads and loads of failing, which I think were more lessons than failures, to get to that point.
Yeah.
The second one, it's just being able to bring out the best in fellow creatives. I've had several conversations with women entrepreneurs who, for lack of a better phrase, have a creator's block. No, but I didn't know. It's actually just create. Everyone goes through that. We know of writers, but creatives in general, we go through that stage where it's just like it's months.
It's not giving.
It's not flowing. And I have those moments throughout the year. And so I've found that I've been very, very, very helpful in navigating those times. I'm yet to find someone that could do that for me.
Okay.
In my moments.
Okay.
But for someone else,
let's talk about that a
crazy.
little. You know why I think that's important is we're always creating. I'm learning now that even the way we call people creatives versus not and things like that, I don't know if we use the right terms, because everybody's creative. Everybody's always creating, you know, how you're cooking, how you switch up a recipe, how you decide to navigate traffic. Like, there's always creativity.
Yes.
Even in our jobs, you could be an accountant, you could be in HR, you could be, you're thinking creatively about problems, right? But we all also experience that block.
Yeah.
You get to that point where I always say that, and I guess we all laugh at it. I always say, like, my brain is not braining. Like, my brain has stopped. I can always tell when I get there, right? And I think it's something we've kind of started, we kind of reserve for artists and creatives, when really we all experience
it.
So do you have like one or two things that help, like, apart from the obvious rests, because I think rest is very helpful, are there other things or practices that people beyond the creative space, and I would really encourage people to not think of themselves as people that don't get creative blocks. Everybody does. So any like practical tips of things that people can do to just re-energize or get that creativity back, get it flowing, because clearly you help other people except yourself. So
that one is I think maybe practical tips would be meditate. I would suggest leaving that space for, it doesn't matter how long, but leave it and then come back to it with a fresh
So
set
like
of
go for a
eyes.
walk.
Go for a walk. Like always have breaks in between. I don't care what kind of job or what
Yeah.
kind of process you have. You need those moments in between. We have, I don't know if like in no, but I think that too as well, because I've experienced it in the design sense of things. I could be working with a very specific palette, and the longer, and this is scientific stuff, but the longer I look at that palette, like everything else blurs, and that's all I see, and everything starts to mesh, and at that point I'm completely blocked. So I could be adding more of specific colors into that particular palette, either through fabrics. It could be, say, a room, for instance. I have maybe something very bright and cheerful, let's say red, orange, yellows, green, things like that. The longer I look at it, the more insensitive I become to that palette. So it's the same thing with everyone. Take a step back, because whatever it is that you're doing has insensitized you to the process of it all. So if you've made mistakes, you will continue making them until you've given your brain a moment to pause, reset, look at something else, absorb something else, and then come back and you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's way too much red. You know? Same thing. So practical step, take a step back, have a moment, breathe. If you need to go, for a jog, if you need to meditate in that moment. If you need to pray.
But do something.
But do something other than that particular thing.
That sounds like good advice for everything. Even just not work.
It's not a work thing. It's just a life thing.
Yeah, it's just everything. Yeah, it's just a life thing. Sometimes when something gets,
if it becomes overwhelming, then you're more than likely needing a break in between. Yeah. It's I don't know where exactly they do this, but there's certain cultures where that 8-9, some cultures is 9 to 5, but that 8 to 5 that we have, they have actual breaks, not where it's lunch and
like 20-minute breaks, and
actual breaks within
that whole day.
That whole day to just
that's I
breathe
think
okay,
it's important.
I think I need a moment. Very much easier to do when you're at uni, because at some point your brain just can't take the notes and everything else. But in life in general, you just want to keep going, and especially when you start paying bills. I just
like
have
go
because no one's coming. I have to keep going, and
no one is coming.
Yes, no one is coming, but if I mess up and no one is coming, then I have a lot more to deal with, because no one is coming. So just take a step back, in as much as you have, and this is more essential when you have like a real deadline, and I'm talking 2 days, 24 hours to do so. Take a step back. The craziest story I will tell you, we had 50 bags to deliver within 48 hours, and we only worked, I think, maybe 30 of those hours. And in that 30, I was so overwhelmed. I didn't really take breaks except to go to the bathroom, and this is after having kept it for like 5-6 hours. Go. But I realized now, looking back, that you should have just taken even just 30 minutes to breathe, because you were going to deliver. No doubt you would deliver, but you needed, because then you burn out, and then you burn out, and then what?
This is a really I think this is a really interesting topic, and I would love the opportunity to explore it more in a different maybe in another podcast, we'll see. But why I think it's important is that I speak with a lot of people who can say they don't remember years of their career. They don't remember parts of life. Like 5 years of their life is blank because of the failure to, I think, pause, come out of it, reflect, take stock, come back into it. Because when you start paying bills, when you realize no one is coming, I think we just keep going. And life becomes this blur. But that's not how life is supposed to be lived, Which is what takes me to like my next question, right? as much as we talked about sustainable living, we talked about, I want to talk about living as well, because one of the things that, from my interactions with you, from even the sense I get from your, like I said, your Instagram, is you live life. Like your life looks
My
full
life.
and lived, So let's talk about living a full life. Like what, first of all, why does that matter to you to live, right? To live out of your gifts, to live out of, to just live life. And why do you think that's also just really important?
Um, I found that when you tap into a part of you that you don't have to do too much to get right, you feel
That's a word.
your best self. You don't have
Let's
to
say
force
that
things.
again.
When
Tapping
you
into
tap
a part
into a
of
part
you.
of you
Yeah.
that you don't have to work hard to get right.
So it's like minimum effort,
Minimum
maximum
effort,
impact.
exactly, and
Yeah.
maximum benefit. Then you don't have to. You're happier.
Yeah.
I find that you have a lot more moments of bliss without having to satisfy someone else's wants and needs of you. You be, in a way, it's kind of selfish to look at it from someone else's perspective, but when
Yeah.
it comes to you, it's self-care.
It's
It's self-care and
self-care.
self-love. It's just tapping into that inner part of yourself that doesn't resist, that doesn't naturally resist, because as humans, I think we get into defense mode very
Yeah.
very easily.
Yeah.
But the one thing that you're good at is the least thing that will
It's the
resist.
least.
It
Yeah.
just flows.
It would just
It's
flow.
it's like for you. I
Yeah.
feel like your speaking with people comes,
It's
natural.
easy. Yeah.
It's very easy for
Yeah.
you, and you're very comfortable, and I can tell
Yeah.
that you're in your element. But I feel like a lot of people, and this was me as well for a long time, we don't necessarily agree with the gift or talent. I like to sometimes I watch Steve Harvey, and specifically his motivational talks. And
Yeah.
this one time I was giving
I
a
love
story
those.
a story about his barber. We're caught up in the being something fancy that
Yes.
we stop our
Architecture.
natural. But that's what
Yeah.
it was for me. It
Yeah.
sounded sexy. It's
Yeah.
like this. Wherever it is I go, if I say I'm an architect, they'll look at me, like, and that's what it is. It comes from an ego.
It's an
ego
ego-based
sense.
thing.
But there's
Yeah.
some people whom from a childhood could braid hair, natural,
Ooh.
easy. And then you ask them, what are you doing now? No, actually, I became a nurse. How?
Yes. Yes.
How? Like, you
I
realize
get
that
that
you
a
could
lot.
own 5 salons at this point
Yeah.
and be living, But because we're so used to, no, I think one of the reasons we're used to this is because we're conditioned from a young
are.
age.
Yeah.
It's our folks and the resources they had, so they tell you have to go to school and have an actual job, because braiding hair isn't a job.
Yeah.
But if God showed you braiding hair from when you were a wee,
Yeah. When you were wee.
yeah, wee child, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
And I think we complicate it because it's
We
that
do.
simple. It's that
We
simple
really do.
that the thing that you do with minimal effort and it
Yes.
just comes so naturally is the area where you're most likely to have impact, and impact not
shine.
just to an impact not just to like help other people or but impact to also create a good life for yourself. Like wealth as well is because you just leaned. The easiest thing to do is even just lean into that, but
Yeah.
that resistance, because
we're
you need to
always
be
resisting.
something that makes sense to other people, and it's rarely for you.
Yeah.
It's so other people can accept you, so it's like a weird validation that when you
is.
walk into a room and you say I'm this, people are like,
Yeah.
Weird
That you say that.
yeah.
You meet certain people and they will lead with their accomplishments
yeah
than anything else, and you're like, Is this you in no, I did this, and I've been in meetings where people will lead with that, and I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? Is am I not supposed to talk about everything
about
I've achieved?
everything else? Yeah.
You know, but I'm very comfortable just saying I'm Lenga, and that's it. And maybe that seems very boring for some people, but it's also very uncomfortable, because the question is, why are you okay with just being Mulenga?
Yeah.
Like, what about all the things that you are doing? And it's like, yeah, but
I feel like people want you to qualify why you're somewhere.
right,
Because you're just being there. Whatever room, they say whatever room, there's no room that you're there by accident. So you just being there means you're supposed to be there.
Exactly.
But like you said, whether it's on it at a table, whether it's wherever, people want you to qualify.
They
like,
do.
"Oh, please
Like,
tell us why you are
why
here.
you're here.
Without saying it, they'll be like, tell us why you are here, please. Why are you brushing shoulders with us? You know?
Or you'll be in a setting, it's a group setting, and they ask you to introduce yourself. Randomly, there'll be one person who say, I did A, B, C, D, and blah, blah. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought we were just supposed to say
just
my
saying
name.
our names.
Wait a minute. But I think it's just the human response to certain situations.
Yeah. I think you and I, like, we could go on forever, but I'm going to rein us back in and just get back on track. Let's talk a bit. I asked this question because I think it's important for me to hear. Let's talk a bit about spirituality, right? Do you think it's played a role? Do you think all of it is, do you think it's all connected? Is it connected to something? Do you think spirituality has played a role to bringing you to where you are today? Yeah.
In a nutshell, yes. In a real sense, I have fought. When we say, earlier you mentioned, we plan and God laughs.
Yeah.
This stems back to like what your actual calling and purpose is, because God puts something in you and then you're doing the other. This is why He laughs.
You keep going with your plans.
Because it's like, friend,
come.
Can you tap in, guys? How am I supposed to give you abundance when you're not tapping into things that you're naturally
that
good
are
at?
yours?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for a long time I've been circling around what my purpose is, and I have this conversation with God daily at this point. And this is not me kneeling or worshiping. This is just, hey friend, listen, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Can we, how are we going to navigate through this? So for me, I feel on the spiritual side of things, I have fought quite a bit, because there have been moments in my life where I felt like, where were you? And as like literally upset, like, can you explain why I feel like you've left me, and why I feel like nothing makes sense. But looking back now, I'm starting to see how and why I felt that way.
Yeah.
Like, you were getting in your own way.
Yeah.
You were living in a certain way that was serving your ego more than what your purpose was. So I'm not sure how you were expecting to hear His voice.
Yeah.
Or see that He was actually still there when you were fighting the whole time. So I believe everything is connected. And I tend to get a lot of my vision in terms of my career and how I design or package products is always shown to me in a vision or a dream, or
I love that.
This is why I say I work best at night, because it's quiet. It's not like absolutely. I could literally hear an ant breathe. Is how quiet it is. So in those moments, I find that I'm going round in circles over something, and it's like, wait a minute. Okay, let's take 5 and then come back. So I come back, and it's like, this is what I was trying to show you this whole
exactly
time.
What it was.
This is what it was. I'm like, oh, okay. Thanks,
Yeah.
friend. And then we keep it moving. So I believe that everything has been connected. And I even though I did fight at some point, I'm coming back to it. And I say I'm coming back because it's become a daily mantra for me, but also a daily dance with God. because we have conversations. It's like the way you
Those
and
are
I,
the best
like for
ones.
me,
Yeah.
that's how I, for the most part of my day, we are constantly having conversations. How even on my way here, I'm like, hey, yo, take the wheel because
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
this, you
Yeah.
need to just let it flow,
Yeah.
be with,
Mm-hmm.
if it does. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, take control.
Yeah.
I want you to lead and then I follow. If
Then I
something
follow.
doesn't feel right, then at least let me know this is not right. But we have a daily dance.
I love it. And yeah, and I think prayer is a lot of things, and prayer sometimes is just that conversation. Those are my favorite kinds of prayers because it feels like he's actually just there.
Yeah.
When I have those kinds of like
But
there,
today,
help.
help days. Send the angels, please.
Yeah. And so what's your hope for your business? What's your vision for it? Let's let's say we're talking 5 years from now. Where would you want to see it?
Pottery barn.
Oh
Our
yes.
house. Yes, I'm not even
Yes.
like I'm not even.
I love
Friend,
this.
look.
I see it.
At the end of the day, Zambians are doing amazing things
Yeah.
globally, and why not me? Why not
Why
my team of
not
artisans?
you?
Why not us?
I love it.
I
Why
don't
not
know.
me?
Dream. I feel like for me, I find that Zambia is a very, very tiny space. Everyone knows someone.
Yeah.
You can't go to one place and think know somebody. And so I've never thought local. It's always been global. I'm thinking Denmark because the when we talk about European design, that is the home of it. So for me, it's expos there. It's collaborating. I actually reached out to a lot of brands, but at the end of the day, you try.
Yeah.
You want to see what is out there and see what the possibilities are. And what I've found is that sometimes you do have to reach out a certain amount of time and they circle back and they're like, oh, I think now
wait.
it's time for
Yeah.
for this to happen.
This is now
So,
fitting. Yeah.
For me, Pottery Barn is definitely
I see
up
it.
there.
I want
me,
it for you.
IKEA is definitely one of them. Yeah,
Yes.
IKEA is Swedish, so
Yeah.
we're already in that
Yeah.
realm. But that's
Yeah.
where I see the brand going. Yes,
I'm excited for you.
Hey, friend.
I'm excited
I'm
for
like,
you
can I
because
sprint? No.
man, I can't wait. And I think sometimes it's just that the clarity.
Yeah.
The clarity of the vision of where your business is going, I think is really powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Hey,
I
man.
like friends with money.
We like friends with money too.
Amazing. So we've come to the end.
Yeah.
I
This has been
know.
so good.
Yeah, we'll stop and then we'll start again our own
Mind.
conversation. We've come to the end, but we also just like to end the podcast by throwing it back to the interviewee to become the interviewer. And this, I feel like more and more I'm going to stop this because I feel like I've answered a lot of questions so far, and now I'm like I don't know if I can answer this question any differently. Like, why did you start this podcast? I've answered it 15 ways now. But yeah, I think for me, when I interviewed, especially that I'm from an HR background, interviewing always felt like at the end you have to end it with questions for me, which is what I was trying to bring to this podcast. But like I said, I'm tired of certain questions. So yeah, Mulenga, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I do.
Up to 3.
These might be kind of off topic.
Oh, my fave.
But I want to know and this might be a little personal, but if you know, great.
Okay.
If you don't, that's fine too. I want to know, what is what is the one thing that you think your folks are most proud of about your life and the direction it's taken? I'm sorry, but yeah.
What are my folks most proud of? I think they are most proud of my consistency. And I'll say this because I have two ways to compare it. I'm thinking of my dad who knew me. I know he still knows me now, but who knew me until I was 11. And my mom who knows me now still. I remain very close with her when I'm 36. So I think my parents would be proud that who I was when I was 11 is who I am now. That the world hasn't
taken
over. Where yes, there are areas where we are fighting, but I think they'll be proud of my consistency, the things that I like to do, my personality, how what I wanted to do in the world in my own way when I was 11 is what I am now. Yeah, I think that's what they're most proud of.
I like that you say consistency, because
Yeah.
that's hard to
it is, and I don't even know, to be honest, I don't know where that came from, that fierce preservation of self that I have. I don't know, I should think about that, but I have always had a fierce preservation of self.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, because a lot of us struggle with that. It's you start something and then it's like not working for a bit, and like okay, something else then.
But as I've grown, they're fighting me now.
They're fighting?
They're fighting me. I don't even know who they are. But everywhere, like I feel like now, there's so much like resistance, and I'm constantly having to go back and say, this ain't you.
Yeah.
And not in an egoic, like the things that you should, we're all not perfect. We have areas of improvement. Those things I'm happy to work on and build my character and become, a better human being. But the essence of me, like the things that make me, whenever I find that now I'm getting more resistance to becoming something else, and now it's a fight. But
is it a good fight?
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting because who wants to become someone else? So whenever there's lots of prescriptions about who I should be and how I should show up in the world, I'm like, but from you who has your own life, why are you trying to encroach on mine? And I'm finding that it's an exhausting fight, because I can't keep fighting to be myself.
Yeah.
So kind of now getting to that space where I'm asking myself, how do I remove myself from situations where this fight is constant, because it's not a fight I like, and it's okay in dosages, but if now it's a bit more frequent. So,
something you can't control.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, especially if it's coming from someone else.
I mean, you can't control it, but I find that you can also see the patterns. So say you meet new groups of people, and these new groups of people are constantly questioning. You have to ask yourself, like, are these groups of people I have to be around? So remove yourself or minimize exposure, right? And say if it's work related. So in a job, if you keep showing up having to justify who you are, having to show up is then that the environment for you? So it's those questions, because I think those things now are on you, and where it will always show up, because life be lifing, but where I can help it, I start to remove myself. That's
good. That's
great
good.
question.
Thank you. My next one is, what is a guilty pleasure that you have?
One. I'm not going to say TV, because TV, I realize, is not a guilty pleasure for me. It's a source of inspiration. So I don't think I get, because I've always loved movies and television shows, and that's a business I'd like to get into. So I've realized that it's not a guilty pleasure, but it was very different for me. It was like a source of inspiration. A guilty pleasure, I think, would be food.
As you should.
I love good food. I love the food that's smothered in butter and
the one that's tickling your tonsils
if
when
you
you
soup.
see it.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And my weakness is I'll pay anything. I don't question how much the food is. If it's an experience I want to have, it's something I want to taste. We're not counting how much it is. We're going to taste it.
I like the adventure in that. I mean, it's daring because sometimes you go to a place and there's like foie gras on the menu.
So you know who's having foie gras?
Fish eggs.
Did I say it right? Foie gras, foie gras,
Foie gras.
You know who's gonna eat that? Me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
so I
me.
love the adventure that you have. Oh,
yeah.
that is
So
interesting.
that's a guilty pleasure. Sometimes I don't even say how much I spent on something that I ate where I went because the side eyes will be like,
Each discretion is
yeah.
advised.
So that's my thing.
Wow,
yeah.
That is interesting. Okay, my last one is if you could have one. I don't know if you're into art or anything like that.
I am, I think. Okay. I didn't know I was, but I think I am, yeah.
If you were to have a painting made that if it were the last thing you looked at, it would sum up your life, what would it be about? I'm sorry, my questions are a bit like but I feel like it's
I think it would be a portrait of me. Yeah, because what else, right? I think it would be a portrait of me capturing my essence. Yeah, I think it would be a portrait of me, but also a portrait of me that I think captures me.
In what sense?
In a sense of, I don't know, I'm now, because of this, I take a lot of pictures now. And I've actually enjoyed, in the last few years, I've enjoyed taking pictures. And I found that my favorite pictures of myself are the pictures that I can see myself, where it's what I've started to enjoy about pictures is not necessarily like how you looked or how your makeup was or whatever, is when I look at myself and I'm like, oh, hey, there you are. And maybe it's in my eyes, and maybe it's in my smile, or maybe it's like an aura. And sometimes it gets captured, sometimes it doesn't. And some of my most like fire pictures, as you'd call them, are pictures where it also like I look there and I'm like, oh, you look nice, but I don't see myself. So I think an amazing picture would be a picture where an artist is able to like paint
capture the essence of you.
Yeah. Wow. Because when I see those pictures, I see I can feel the journey. Like, and I don't know if other people would see that and feel that, but I can feel the journey. I can see where I'm coming from and it to be in that exact moment, right? I can also see I see beauty as well. I'm just like, gosh, you're beautiful.
Of course you are.
But beautiful in a sense of like not in its vanity. Beautiful in like, you can see my mom, I can see like where I look like my mom. I can see like, because my mouth area I feel like is my dad. And when you grow up, you start to search for that, especially that he hasn't been present.
You do.
I try to see him in me. So I'm like, I see him in my mouth and my eyes. And I start to wonder about my grandparents and my great-grandparents. I'm like, where did this nose come from? And who gave us the crooked teeth, please? Who are you, ancestor?
Reveal yourself.
Right? So in that moment, like, it becomes this really beautiful experience. And I think that's what I've come to love about these pictures I keep taking. So I think my great-grandchildren will be tired of my portraits. So, because I've come to love that. And I hope, and I think I'm going to do that actually. I'm adding that to the bucket list. I want an artist to
capture the essence of you. I think that's a beautiful way to sum up your life, because it's hard to have those moments where you look at a picture and see yourself.
Yeah, I'm having those a lot, and I'm absolutely enjoying them.
Bill, we say thanks for the job well done.
If you want to book Bill, please DM me. I'm his manager.
We love it. Thank you so much for answering those questions.
Thank you for asking them. Those were some like
thinkers.
You want us to exchange tips? Do you want the podcast? Because your questions be questioning. I love them. Very good questions. So, Mulenga, new best friend.
Yay!
Thank you so much for coming, and this was a great conversation. I had no doubt, but like I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for having me. This was very refreshing because my life is chaotic sometimes.
Wow.
But this very refreshing.
I love it.
It's very, very
Well,
refreshing.
thank you for coming to be refreshed.
Hey, I appreciate it.
So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Talent Whisperer podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like this video, you subscribe, and also subscribe to other platforms that we're on. We're on all your favorite podcast platforms. So until the next time, cheers. Thank you.